Welcome back live to Live Now from Fox, everybody. It is just before 10 o'clock in the morning here on the East Coast and just before 7 o'clock on the West Coast. You're taking a live look at San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge, pretty much covered up almost entirely of fog. We do want to switch to some economy-related news. Gas prices continue to rise. According to AAA, the national average for a gallon of regular gasoline now $4.87 a gallon. That is up from $3.05 exactly a year ago. Here in Florida, the average currently sits around $4.75, and the national average in California, $6.34 a gallon. And of course, we do want to head out live to Los Angeles, California, where we do have our Fox Business Network's Kelly O'Grady. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. I see you're standing outside of a gas station. California dealing with some seriously high gas prices compared to the rest of the country. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, you can see over my shoulder, right? $6.99. If you do out the math, just to fill up a standard sedan, that's going to cost you close to $100. I mean, that's not even a gas guzzler. But everyone always asks, like, oh my gosh, why is California so expensive? And the reason is that, one, like, we have very high taxes and fees. So every time you go up to the pump, roughly 25% of what you're paying goes to pay those taxes and fees. The second thing, though, is that we're what we call an energy island. So anything that we don't produce in the state, you actually have to import from places like Saudi Arabia, like the Amazon. So you aren't able to take oil and whatnot from Texas and ship it over. So it's kind of a little bit of a red herring as we think about moving more towards that green energy future. When we don't necessarily have that transition plan and we stop more and more production, we see what's happened in California, sky high gas prices, and it's a little bit of a warning for the rest of the country. And you're starting to see the rest of the country catch up to us here.
Yeah, and Kelly, I did want to ask, a lot of trade comes into California, a lot of trade coming in really from all over the world. Can you explain a little bit about how gas prices are impacting consumer goods and what we pay to ship items?
Yeah, so our ports, of course, have been a huge focus this past year with the supply chain crisis. We've got the Port of LA and the Port of Long Beach right here in Southern California, Port of Oakland up in Northern California. Roughly 30% of all international waterborne trade comes into these two Southern California ports. But obviously it doesn't stop there, right? It goes to Minnesota, it goes to Florida. And so how does it get there? It gets there via those big trucks you see on the road, and they're all using diesel. Now, if you see over my shoulder, I'm pretty sure diesel's like 727. I was going to quote 717. It's gone up. And so, that creates a problem because you have to factor in when it's traveling across the country, that cost to get those goods to Florida, to get those goods to Minnesota. And so the high cost of diesel, and particularly here in California, that creates a huge increase in cost, and that's part of the reason why you're seeing such an inflation when you go to the grocery store, when you go to wherever to get your goods.
And Kelly, I know some experts were saying that we could see gas hit $5 by August. I think were some early estimates maybe about a month ago. Do you think that we could see that sooner now that most of us are paying almost $5 for a gallon?
Absolutely. So I think the most recent estimate I saw from Gas Buddy said that we could actually reach that by mid-June. In the last week alone, we've jumped 25 cents for the national average. I think you said at the top it's $4.87 right now. We've only got 13 cents to go. In the past couple of days, it's been going up, 3, 4, 5 cents each overnight. So that 13 cents, I mean, we're June 5th, June 6th. We could reach that even sooner. But I mean, as you said, right, California, highest gas prices in the nation. There's a handful of states that are already over $5. When I look at that price behind me, I mean, $5 would be a relief here.
And Kelly, how long do you think that we will expect to see this going on? I know that we've been talking about gas prices and inflation pretty much all year. You've been covering it for quite a long time. How long will we see gas prices continue to rise like this? And how long really can Americans continue paying this?
So I think, of course, one big piece is how long the war in Ukraine lasts. We've seen it spike dramatically since President Putin started amassing troops. I believe it was January 17th when he started to make those moves towards the Ukraine border. But the thing is that half of the increase in prices, or rather I should say the gas price is double what it was when President Biden took office back in January of 2021. Half of what you see in that 487, it was 239 when he took office. Half of that happened before the invasion in Ukraine. So much of what you're seeing is Russia, but a lot of it is just our energy policies. We've reduced production here. Now we have started to ramp up more, but it takes time. And so I think there's two competing factors: how quickly some of these places can get online, but also, I mean, how long this lasts in Russia. One thing I do want to, or in Ukraine, one thing I do want to point out is that there is a 90% by the end of the year ban on Russian imports to the EU. I think it's 2.5 million barrels of oil a day. So there has to be a lot more production ramped up in order to replace that. And I mean, that's just going to take months and months. So it really depends, I think, on how long this war lasts. And I mean, I think that's something that we're all asking and no one knows the answer to except President Putin.
Kelly, that was actually one of my next questions. The EU last week, I believe it was, they announced that they have all agreed to ban 90% of Russian oil imports by the end of the year. If you can explain a little bit more exactly how you think that could impact us now that the EU is going to phase that out.
So, I mean, in theory, right, this is going to put more pressure on Russia to wrap this up quickly, which would be good for, I mean, the obvious reasons, but also for those pressure on gas prices. But in the interim, that means that you're not increasing the supply currently to replace that. In total supply, worldwide is decreasing. And so you're going to have to see countries get their oil from somewhere else. Now, there's a lot of talk that, okay, we could ramp up shale oil production in the United States. We could, be that exporter, but that's not something that we're choosing to do right now. So last week, OPEC, which, that includes Saudi Arabia, it also does include Russia, as well as a lot of other Middle Eastern nations, did decide to increase their production. But for all of the touting that the administration is doing of that decision, they're only increasing their production by 200,000 barrels a day. So the fact that the EU ban deals with 2.5 million barrels a day, there's a big mismatch there. So I think you are going to continue to see gas prices rise because of this ban. But of course, it is for a larger reason with everything that's going on in Ukraine.
Kelly, I wanted to ask, anything specific that you think our lawmakers could do to help with gas prices here, or the president? I know some states, New York, they've issued that gas holiday, that gas tax break. Do you see that happening in any other states?
So we've talked about it here in California, and I mean, of course, I mentioned at the top, so much of what you pay at the pump is taxes and fees, but the gas tax would roughly take off, that we've been talking about, like 18 cents or so. I mean, like I said, in the past week, we've already increased 25 cents. So yeah, okay, maybe it won't be $6.99, it'll be closer to $6.80. But I think more what we need to see is a larger push, whether that is importing more oil, whether it's producing more here. I mean, those are going to be the things that move the needle more. And certainly those are very, very, very contentious topics amongst both sides. So I think you're going to see this play a lot into what happens in the midterms come November.
And Kelly, I know, you and I and our other Live Now team members have talked a lot about Elon Musk. So, we are talking about gas prices, which of course also leads into the economy and that possible recession that some economists are saying that we could see. Just last week, we did hear that the CEO of JP Morgan Chase talked about a potential economic hurricane. Following that, we did hear from Tesla CEO Elon Musk saying that he doesn't have a good feeling about the economy and that he plans on cutting 10% of Tesla's workforce. Your thoughts on that and how gas prices, the war, everything is sort of leading to this potential, economic situation that we could see?
I know. I love how Elon finds his way into every single story that I'm doing. I was covering him for forever, and now he's moved into the economy. One thing that I've been talking to folks here, every single day that I'm out at these pumps, I talk to folks, how is this impacting you? And I'm hearing over and over, it's not only impacting how much they're traveling, but it's also impacting, what jobs they're taking, how far their office is from their home, because of course we are moving back into this idea of, okay, we need to go back to in-person work, depending depending, of course, on how things look with the coronavirus this summer. But, you know, when I heard Elon's comments, it's interesting because you haven't seen the demand decrease for Tesla cars or their EVs, but you are seeing, of course, with the shutdowns in China, that there may be a production lag. So I think his comments were a little bit more about getting ahead of a potential drop off. And of course, there's a lot of scrutiny around everything because he's also currently in the acquisition of Twitter, which has made headlines today. But, you know, I think it's kind of a wait and see thing right now, but you are seeing these big CEOs message this because they're also going to have to report earnings in a couple of months here. And, you know, they want to get ahead of any potential fallout that then causes their stock to plummet on Wall Street. So I think you're just kind of seeing people message a lot of caution because we are moving towards that if gas prices and food prices and whatnot continue to rise.
All right, Fox Business Network's Kelly O'Grady. Kelly, as always, thank you so much for joining us and breaking down, you know, the rising gas prices, inflation, everything that we have been talking about. And of course, in California, one of the highest in the entire country. So Kelly, as always, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.